Good morning, grade 10s. This is an amazing and wonderful day because today we are going to look at trigonometry and amazing applications of trigonometry in determining the length of a missing side. So this is Mr. VG. Stay tuned for this amazing video where we are going to look at the awesome applications of trigonometry in real life. So let's start with an example. I'm going to give you that sum. I've got a right angle triangle with 15 and 8 being my two sides and x being my hypotenuse. Now, I was speaking about the hypotenuse quite a lot in the previous videos. And something that my moderator brought to my attention was the importance of understanding that the hypotenuse is always the longest side. So when I'm trying to determine a missing side, the length of a side of a triangle, in a right angle triangle, I always look at two options. The first option that I look at is Pythagoras. Okay? Now, the second option is looking at SOHCAHTOA. Remember, Pythagoras says that, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides. Let's look at this specific sum. I have the two other sides and I need the longest side, your hypotenuse. So therefore, I'm just going to use Pythagoras. Now, when I look at Pythagoras, and let me just correct that, that's not Pythagoras, Pythagoras. When I look at Pythagoras there, I can very clearly see that I can use it because I have the other two sides. So let's go for writing out my basic theorem of Pythagoras. 8 squared plus 15 squared is equal to my x squared. Now, it is always good to write for the examiner that you use Pythagoras as a reason. They just love it. I'm not even going to look at SOHCAHTOA because I wasn't given the value of one of the angles or the magnitude of one of the angles. But I can just use x there to solve that, what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go and calculate my squares, add them together, and then take a square root on both sides to get rid of that square because it is the inverse operations. Now, I am saying this very clearly, especially in grade 11. We want to see a plus minus in front of that square root because there are actually two possible answers. But I'm not going to worry about that now because we are looking at the length of the sides. So let's quickly put this in my calculator. And x is 17 centimeters. But what if I don't have all the sides, like this specific example? Now I'm asking you to determine the length of BC, or x. I don't have the length of AB, so I can't use Pythagoras. So what I'm going to do is follow three basic steps of solving the missing side, actually of solving any triangle. The first step is going to be to label the sides in the triangle. The second step is choose a function that goes with the sides. And then thirdly, we are going to solve the equations. So let's start with the first step, labeling the sides. I'm looking from the 35 degrees. In other words, the AB is going to be my adjacent, BC is going to be my opposite, and AC is going to be my hypotenuse, the longest side opposite the 90 degrees. Now, when looking at this, I'm working with O, the opposite, and H, the hypotenuse. So, comparing this to SOHCAHTOA, I am going to have a look at sin, because it works with opposites and hypotenuse. I don't care about the adjacent, so I'm not going to worry about cos or tan. So writing out sin of 35 degrees, opposite over hypotenuse, which is x over 10. Now I'm done with the second step. I chose my function and I wrote down the equation for it. How do I now get that x alone? Well, I want to get rid of the divide by 10. So I'm going to times by 10 on both sides. The beautiful thing is, then those 10s divide away, 10 divided by 10, leaving me with x on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, 10 sine 35. Look, I just swapped it around, but if it confuses you, you are more than welcome to write 10 sine 35 equal to x. Putting this in my calculator, my answer is 5,74. Now, I want you in your mind to hit the pause button, not of the video, but in your mind. Does it make sense? What do you mean, sir? What does it mean to make sense of it? Well, the 10 is the longest side. It's the hypotenuse. Is your value for x smaller than 10? Yes, it's 5,74. Therefore, it does make sense. How would it look if it didn't make sense? Well, let's say you got an answer of 12,3. Would that make sense in the triangle? No, it wouldn't. Simply because it cannot be longer than the hypotenuse. It has to be smaller than 10. Now let's look at one more example. I'm going to tell you, hit the pause button on the video and try this example yourself. I'm going to run through this process the same way as I did earlier. I'm going to look at my 3 basic steps. I'm going to label the sides, I'm going to choose the function, and I'm going to solve my equation. So if I label the sides, there I've got again adjacent, opposite, and hypotenuse. Looking at SOHCAHTOA, I'm now working with the opposite and the adjacent, so I'm going to choose tan. So I'm going to write out my equation. Tan of 60 is opposite 40 over x. Oh, now I've got an interesting little one there with x in the denominator. I don't want that. So I'm going to again solve this equation. So I'm going to times both sides by x, which leaves me with x tan 60 degrees equal to 40. Still, I'm looking to get x alone, to isolate it. So I'm going to divide both sides with tan of 60. Beautiful little thing, because the tan 60 is divided away. And on the right hand side, it leaves me with 40 over tan 60. Which gives me a final answer of 23,09. Now this is a very important little thing. If I look at my triangle, this side here at the top is 30 degrees, which means the angle opposite the 30, or the side opposite the 30, must be smaller than the side opposite the 60. Let me just say that again. The side opposite the 30 must be smaller than the side opposite the 60. PS, where did I get the 30 from? Well, that's just interior angles of a triangle. Bringing it back to trigonometry, that x has to be smaller than 40. Is it smaller than 40? Yes. Does it make sense? Yes. So now we can go and have an awesome rest of your day. Look out for the next videos. Hit subscribe. Tune into our platform and register for some awesome, amazing worksheets where you can practice this a lot more. So grade 10s, have a beautiful and wonderful rest of your day. Cheers.